Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I am your host, William Tapley, also known as the Third Eagle of the Apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. Well, how do you like my new setup? I have decided to abandon the green screen and scenery for the time being and set up a studio in my living room. And I did this for one reason, because quite a few other people on YouTube do the same thing, and they are far more successful than I am. So, maybe this is the secret. Let me know what you think. Now, over this past weekend, several very important events occurred to the Antichrist and the false prophet. Now, right off the bat, I want to put in a little disclaimer. I'm not 100% certain that Recep Erdogan is the Antichrist or that Pope Francis is the false prophet. On the other hand, the Bible gives us clues as to the identities of these two very important end times personages. And why does the Bible give us those clues? The only reason I can think of is so that we can identify them before they carry out their dastardly deeds. Not only so that we can pray to mitigate their dastardly deeds, but so that we will be prepared when those deeds occur. And the first event I want to talk about is President Erdogan's victory in the elections in Turkey. I think if you read those headlines, you'll see what I'm talking about. Turkey election, President Erdogan tightens his grip on power in surprise landslide victory. He is consolidating his power in the Middle East. He is more and more, in my opinion, taking on the role of the Antichrist. I can't think of any other leader in the Mideast who has a firmer control of his government now that he has won this landslide victory. And that includes Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, who in fact I believe will very soon lose his position because he will be the anointed one who is cut off. And this headline continues, as the Kurdish and secularist party's support falls away, the Turkish president is handed a mandate that will allow him to monopolize power and intervene in Syria. Well, that article is 100% correct. And we are going to see President Erdogan rise very quickly to prominence in the Middle East, especially after Russia and America take each other out of the way. Now, the other event which occurred this past weekend was Pope Francis granted an interview to an Italian newspaper. And he said in that interview that divorced and remarried Catholics can receive communion if they ask. That's the only requirement, according to this latest theory put forward by Pope Francis. And this interview is extremely interesting. Now, I have my computer monitor right here. This is another advantage of this setup. So let me read from this for you. And the headline is, Francis told me all the divorced who ask will be admitted to communion. Italian atheist Eugenio Scalafari has released yet another bombshell interview with Pope Francis. And this time he is claiming the Pope told him that all the divorced who ask will be admitted to communion. And this article continues, when asked about the conclusion the recent synod on the family had reached, the Pope allegedly told Scalafari that the family changes continuously, and the way it is conceived in modern society contains some positive aspects and some negative ones. He then went on to speak about the situation of the divorced and remarried receiving communion. For that which regards the admission of the divorced to the sacraments, the diverse opinion of the bishop confirms that this principle has been accepted by the synod. Did you hear that? I told you Pope Francis was going to use the conclusion of the synod to justify giving communion to divorced and remarried Catholics. He wanted them to provide him cover, and even though they didn't, he is going to interpret their conclusions that way. This is the bottom line result. The de facto appraisals are entrusted to the confessors. So now I guess the priests are going to be able to grant annulments. This is a new development. But at the end of faster or slower paths, now I think he's probably talking about in Germany it will be a very fast path. In other countries, not so fast. In Poland, they've already said that bishops will not allow communion for divorced and remarried Catholics. All the divorced who ask will be admitted, he said, in the Sunday edition of La Repubblica, according to a translation by Roarte Caeli. The Vatican's chief spokesman, Jesuit Father Federico Lombardi, however, says Scalafari's story is inaccurate. Now listen to his criticism. He does not deny the Pope said that. Listen very carefully. Instead, he attacks the journalist. This is typical roundabout type criticism. He douses the story, but he never once says the Pope did not say that. Obviously, the report of Mr. Scalafari is not correct, he told LifeSite News today. Now, I'm getting this off of LifeSite News, and I will put a link to it before because it's a good article. As it already happened in the past, Scalafari attributes sometimes to the Pope precise words with quotation marks that the Pope has never pronounced, but are only his interpretation. In other words, he is complaining about Scalafari's past interviews. Nothing about this interview. He has publicly declared that he has never recorded the words of the person that he has interviewed, and this is well known by the Italian press. Therefore, the words of the article of Scalafari absolutely cannot be considered as the mind of the Pope. You will find that not only did he not say that the Pope never said those words, but you will not have Pope Francis come out and deny that he said those words. And that's because, in my opinion, he most certainly did say those words, and that does tell us the mind of the Pope, no matter what this Vatican spokesman says. And so in conclusion, I am asking you, my subscribers, to keep me informed of what is going on, because both of these articles were given to me by several of my subscribers, and the news is going to be coming fast and furious. Satan has only a very short time left. He has to accomplish his end times goals in just the next few months, and we have to be prepared for very great disasters coming upon the world very shortly. And if you would like more information, visit my thirdeaglemedia.com website, where I have analyzed, unsealed all of the great prophecies of Daniel.